And so we're keeping our focus on the recent killings and security situations that have spread across Benue State, northern Nigeria, looking at how it has also spread to other parts of the southern part of the country. And to do justice to that, Mr. John Ngamsa is a former Commissioner of Information in Adamawa State. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the show.
It's nice being around here.
Now we're focusing on Adamawa State, and because this seems to be moving away from Benue State now to Adamawa State with a religious inclination to it. How potentially dangerous are these waters?
Just like you rightly mentioned, potentially dangerous is the issue, but I think it's not moving from Benue back into Adamawa. If you are to take the actual history or the narrative, you're going to understand that this thing is more concentrated in Adamawa State and now migrating perhaps to areas like Benue. Well, there are two things you have to put into consideration in seeing that happen. Due to the simple fact that, one, we've had chains and series of attacks by the herdsmen, in that particular state, moving from one chain to the other, to where, appropriately, I can comfortably tell you that we've lost nothing less than 350 persons. Quite more than what you've seen in Benue State. And the alarming dimension that is there is the factor of how the internal security is mismanaged. More from the top and less from the bottom. Adding to the simple fact that whether you like it or not, you have to accept the simple fact that we've had this case coming on in chains from 2015, when all these issues of herdsmen, farmer, grazer, whatever it is, started taking the front line, on the pages of the newspaper. You have to look at how detracting it has been, is the inability of the government. I just watched the Minister of Interior, spoke about issues, and that of Agric, talk about whatever it is. If you have a problem lingering, for too long, way back 2015, and coming to about 2018 and moving into 2019, that tells you that there's something that is weak in the process of trying to understand the actual security mechanism of this country. From the internal perspective, there is weak internal security administration. Now, looking at it from that angle, we've had cases of raids upon raids. It's always been, somebody moves into your farm, somebody eats your crop, and then somebody kills you in the event. It's always the case. But there's always a narrative, that comes up to tell you that there are international cattle routes that move across farmlands for how long? Now you begin to ask yourself whether these treaties actually have reality in themselves, giving us to get to understand that whether we like it or not, we must as a nation sit down and address issues. All these cattle that come into this particular country, are they coming in for our own collective national interests that will so defend it that you will hear governors and top policymakers and even senators of the Federal Republic and even ministers in this government at policy level making it look as if animal rights is more important than human rights.
But how was Adamawa State able to focus and stop this major challenge that occurred back then? How was it able to succeed in solving it?
Well, I cannot say that there is a major success, because as I mentioned to you, I come from a locality where the people are largely farmers, and I live at home. And I assure you that where I work is just a stone throw from my hometown, and virtually everything that exists in the community at least applies to me. I'm someone that likes records by nature. I keep diaries. If you ask me for 30 years, I can comfortably tell you what's been happening in that community because I've been back home. I'll comfortably tell you that there is a scenario which I've heard people misplace, on the media and otherwise, saying that it's been one side that is responsible for it, particularly when it happens. The starting point of the narrative has always been that, okay, people killed. Now, you are not trying to go into details of trying to understand how and why all these things came about. Now, look at it from this perspective. On that community where I come from alone, and others in Adamawa State, that is not only Numan, you talk about Gire local government, there are people of my ethnic nationalities that are there, and other tribes. Adamawa is an interesting linguistic terrain where in a local government you meet 5 or more ethnic groups, but comfortably on the lower side of the Benue, where most of the grazing activity usually takes place, you notice that my people settle along the Benue River, and then it keeps going on like that. So one community will attack today, tomorrow another one, next tomorrow another one. It looks like, on the platform, open platform, it's like, okay, it's the farmer fighting the herdsman, or it's the herdsman fighting the farmer. But the consistency and application which you've seen, you know, the repetition, you know, not only given that particular